This is Renata Weller. This is London, July 25th, 2019, and it's about 38 degrees outside, so one of the hottest days on record in this country. And I thought to myself, what a great day to record a mini webinar on the 4 things you need to know to create great presentations. Number 1, be enthusiastic. If you don't care, if you are not enthusiastic about your pet subject, why should others? And as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. Hand in hand with that goes number 2, be entertaining. Entertainment increases engagement, and we know that we need an engaged audience to increase our effectiveness of learning. Number 3, be effective. And to be effective, you need to focus. You need to focus on the 1 to 3 key messages you want people to take away from your talk. And this requires you focusing on concepts, on the big picture, rather than getting utterly bogged down by detail. Do not waste people's time and brain power with non-relevant information. Filter, be harsh with yourself, really focus on the absolute essential messages you want to get across. How can we do this? Well, we have various tools. We have our visual tools, we have our structure, how we deliver it, and that includes the body language and our voice. So the structure, as I've already said, number 1 step is identify your key messages and stick to that. Tell a story. Have a red thread going through your talk. Relate to your audience. Find common ground right at the beginning. You can do this by being interactive, not only at the beginning, but also throughout. Ask the audience questions. And you can do that with or without an audience response system. Crack a joke. Don't be afraid. I mean, obviously, it would be good if it would be somewhat politically correct. And relate it to the audience, the topic, or yourself. And keep on time. Nothing worse than being in a lecture where it says it's supposed to be 15 minutes and you're still there after an hour. This happens. That's not good. Remember, people's attention span is short. If you are on your own and you can choose your time, 8 minutes. 8 minutes is about the average attention span of people nowadays. So stick with that. So many of you will be doing scientific presentations, and it's good to follow the standard structure, very similar to a paper. Do an introduction, background information, clearly state your aim and hypothesis, describe your materials and methods, describe your results, discuss them, and come to a conclusion. Relate back to the hypothesis and the aim you stated. Now, make sure you don't bore people with giving too much detail on the background. If they are there, they already know something about your subject. So if you give a talk on ultrasound of a suspensor ligament, don't spend half of the time explaining where the suspensor ligament originates from. Focus on your new findings and don't bore people with things they already know. Most of you stick with pre-prepared slides, usually using PowerPoint. But I would just like to mention there is actually a whole range of free software out there that lets you prepare really cool slides. And there is this guy with this awesome blog, and I've put the link here. So if you want to do a little bit outside your standard PowerPoint, have a look at what he recommends. I personally really like audience participation. And again, there is lots of free software out there, which is quite nicely described and summarized, or at least some of it, in the Free Tech for Teachers website I put on this slide as well. You don't always need slides. Sometimes simple videos or animations will do. And personally, I really think we should all be a little bit braver than we are and try non-digital visuals, especially if it's not a huge audience. If you're only talking to 12, 13 people, Why bore them with PowerPoint? Develop your ideas using whiteboards or flip charts. Try props. Best presentation I've ever seen was a guy who talked on flight biomechanics, and all he used was a stack of A4 papers, plain printing paper, where he basically folded aeroplanes. And it was amazing. And I think I kind of understood what flight biomechanics are tricky, but I really think I got the message. If you choose to use slides, I've put some recommendations on this slide. As a rule of thumb, aim for 1 to 2 slides per minute of presentation. Use dark writing on light background rather than the other way around. Use bullet points over continuous text. Our brains fill in the rest of the sentence. Use at least font size 24. And that includes the labeling of figures. Often when graphs come up, the labeling is so small that nobody has a clue what that graph is supposed to show. Use plain fonts. For example, Arial is a good one. Avoid block letters. Use bold font instead of underlining and a minimum of 1.5 spacing. And most of those recommendations come from the Guide to Dyslexic Learners. High percentage in the veterinary population, in the veterinary profession, suffers from some form of learning difficulties. So be kind to us who do that, and I'll put here a guide to dyslexic learners on here. If you can, favor graphic display over text. No point in describing a horseshoe when you could just show a horseshoe. Only use high quality images and videos though. I mean, if they're so grainy or so small that you can't see a thing, there's not much point. Use a minimum of 600 dpi and don't use more than 2 pictures per slide. They get too small and really tricky to see. Make sure your images are appropriately zoomed in. No point if there is a horsefoot in a tiny horsefoot with surrounding a whole school surrounding it. We are interested in the horsefoot, not the shavings around it. Only use relevant images. I know you all have cute animals and you all have cute children, and by any means use them on your last slide, but why do I need to look at a very cute dog if the topic is horse feet or something else completely unrelated? So use relevant images. If you use videos, keep them as short as possible. We don't want any problems with downloading. We don't want any delays in displaying them. If they're longer, consider cutting them up in portions to make them more user-friendly. Your voice. Focus on the key messages. Avoid rehashing facts the audience already knows. You can repeat facts, but use repetition wisely. For example, you can go back to your aim and hypothesis, but don't rehash what you've already told people in the introduction again and again and again. Make sure you speak clearly and at an appropriate noise level. There's nothing worse than having to try to even hear the speaker. Most people automatically just stop listening. Even if the topic is very interesting, if you can't hear it, what's the point? Pace. Some people talk too fast, some people talk too slow. It's a fine line between the two. Try not to overwhelm people by going too fast, and also do not bore people by speaking too slowly. The intonation, modulate your voice. Don't speak monotonously and put everyone to sleep. Really try to go up and down with volume, try to go up and down with pitch. Body language. Don't adopt a defensive stance. Adopt a forward-leaning stance that will show the audience that you're interested in interacting with them. Be confident in your stance. 2 legs firmly, feet firmly on the ground. Position yourself so you can face the audience. Sometimes it's tricky because if you don't have a laptop in addition to the projection screen on the wall, Don't be tempted to turn around and turn your back to the audience. Face the audience. Think about this beforehand. Before your session starts, go in there and see how it's all arranged. Where do you feel more comfortable standing? Try to avoid hiding behind the lectern. Sometimes you have to stand exactly where they want you to stand because they might be filming or there might be the limitation of the microphone. If possible, use a lapel microphone. Ask for it so that enables you to move freely. Sometimes it's advisable, especially in longer presentations, to change position, to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes you might want to demonstrate something with your own body, or you want to gesture to illustrate something. And lastly, the whole point of doing a presentation, the whole point of doing any teaching exercise is to inspire people. We want to inspire people to think and or behave differently. And this could be as simple as inspiring people to walk away thinking, yeah, I want to know more about suspensory ligament problems in horses. I want to know more about certain subjects. I'm going to look this up. Or you could aim a bit higher and say, right, I really want to change people's behavior. I want them in future to consider a new diagnostic test or a new treatment. And sometimes you listen to presentations that actually influence your life, that influence your attitude to things. And that's obviously very powerful. So my homework to you is, I would like you to think about the presentation that inspired you the most. What effect did it have? What change did it bring about? And why? And what did the presenter do that made it inspiring? Thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing back from you.